We continue with the conversation on matter security, and we're looking at the federal system in Ethiopia, where, of course, we know 2 weeks ago there was an attempted coup which was foiled by the government, and now people are questioning about the federal system in Ethiopia, and that's what we've been discussing with the panelists before we took a short break. And also, this was a leading story, or it is a leading story in the East Africa this week, and questions are being asked about how also that will affect the country, especially when it comes to the Isiolo-Moyale Road and the Lapset project. And this is bound to affect Turkana oil deposit, because when we get all of this, we need transport as well, and that will adversely affect the region. So ethnic nationalism is the PM's major hurdle here, has to pacify interest groups, and we are trying to dig deeper and see where this is leading. There are people who are feeling they're partners, you know, in a country where we are espousing nationalism, and you're feeling like you are a partner, you're not part of a coalition. Why are we being segregated? And these are some of the simmering issues that now are bubbling underneath and are coming to the fore as far as Ethiopia is concerned. And this also is upsetting the apple cart as far as Abiy's leadership is concerned. Before we took a short break, I would promise also to continue with, I saw Koigi Wamwere raising his finger to just say something. Right. Yeah,
but I don't know.
But you've really thrown me off. Now I've lost the sequence of how now our panelists are contributing.
That's okay, but
or maybe then I can
the discussions that we've had here. First of all, I agree with what Mheshimiwa Koigi Wamwere did ask a question: what is nationalism?
Yeah. Maybe I could say what I have to say, and then you respond to.
That's fine.
To both if
That's fine.
And
so he's not really answered your first question.
Not yet.
Why can't he answer the first question before you go to the next one?
Maybe he wants to answer the question.
Yeah, maybe I might.
So you want to ask yourself?
Yeah, because I was going to ask Professor Kagwanja a question, but maybe rather than ask the question, I could raise it in what I have to say.
Okay.
And then he can pick it up from there.
Okay.
And especially I have problems with what he said about, yes, Ethiopia is the fastest growing country. But this fastest growing country in the world, I think he said in the world.
In Africa?
No, he said in the world.
Among the fastest growing.
The fastest in the world.
In the world,
yes, yeah, which is okay. But this fastest growing country in the world is also divided. And it is in trouble as we are talking, out of this division. So you ask yourself, what is the problem? Why is Ethiopia divided? And my answer to that was that it's divided because of the ideology of negative ethnicity or tribalism. This is what is ailing Ethiopia, what is ailing South Sudan, what is ailing Kenya. It is the ideology that was responsible for genocide in Rwanda. It is the same problem that we have in Congo. So we have to, if we want to help Ethiopia, then we have to ask the question, why are they divided? If it is negative ethnicity, what is being done to fight it? Compare Ethiopia with Rwanda. In Rwanda, there is a very effective effort to solve the problem of negative ethnicity, to root it out from the schools, root it out from the working places, root it out from their politics. You cannot organize a party on ethnic basis and be allowed to. And everybody now accepts that Rwanda, other than doing well economically, is also doing very well politically, in the sense that they don't have this problem of negative ethnicity. Now, if you listen to Kagwanja, a country with more than one community cannot survive without ethnicity. And I'm surprised, because in this country, there was a time that we were known to be very nationalistic. At the time of independence, I don't know whether I said it in my first comment, at the time of independence, there was a big struggle between negative ethnicity that was being pushed for by the colonialists in order to divide and rule Africans, and if possible stop independence. Well, at that time, nationalism did very well. Gradually, it had been eroded by negative ethnicity, and as we talk, negative ethnicity has actually disappeared. The closest I have come to it now is the professor here you talked about ethnic nationalism, or somebody talked about ethnic nationalism. Or it was you, Deba.
Yes, from the East African.
That's
yes,
right.
Yes, yes.
And what I have not heard about ethnic nationalism before.
It's a new coinage.
That sounds like a new...
Sure.
No, I think
Professor,
the main thing.
it is not the main thing.
No,
you
no,
cannot have the two together.
You cannot have ethnic nationalism.
Dibao, just
Okay, just a
has
moment.
answered this question.
What I'm trying to say is that...
Koigi, I have my bell here. I'll be ringing it out also to stop you.
To solve negative ethnicity,
Yes.
you need nationalism. I have said that in Rwanda they are doing very well. Abiy will have to do the same thing in Ethiopia.
Thank you.
And it's not enough that he is a military man, because remember, military coups are undoing people's power in many other countries, not just Ethiopia.
Thank you.
And right now, in Ethiopia, you have a problem of both military dictatorship going together with negative ethnicity, which actually doubles the problem.
Thank you.
Rather than solving
Thank you.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mustafa,
Dibao,
then we hear from Dr. Sungi as well. Dr. Kanenje.
Yeah, Mheshimiwa Wamwere has partly answered the question that he asked about nationalism. Let me add here for in the context of Ethiopia, and I bring in an example from outside Africa, a former Yugoslavia. The post-Cold War Yugoslavia was a mess. Ethiopia risks becoming or going today in the same direction that former Yugoslavia went after the end of the Cold War.
I agree.
Now, and this is the challenge, because Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia depended a lot in its position during the Cold War and aligning with the East, so it was a foreign power or ideology, not an internal ideology in Yugoslavia, that actually put it together and tore it apart. And Ethiopia could be moving in the same direction. The problem here, Dibali, is, and this is my own thinking, is the problem with negative ethnicity that Professor, or rather Mheshimiwa Koigi Wamwere is talking about, is brought about, and we've seen that this in so many African countries, is brought about by greed, that one dominant community, however small or large, wants to be a community, and members of that, the elite members of that community, want to use that tribe as a vehicle to amass power and financial or resources or wealth. Then the other communities will see.
I agree.
The other communities will, okay, this particular community, in this case it was the Tigrayan that did this, and we have to call what has happened in Ethiopia for what it is, amassed wealth and power by the elite within the Tigray community itself. And if this happens in Rwanda or in Kenya or in Tanzania or any others, the other communities are going to revolt, and they'll feel that they're being excluded, sidelined, marginalized in a state. So nationalism, yes, was very much alive and well in the 60s in Kenya, but that has kind of ebbed over the years because of this thinking, and politicians have done this country a great disservice to try and push communities and say alongside ethnic enterpriseship. So we have tribal entrepreneurs, whether it's a Kalenjin, Luo, Kikuyu, who actually look at their community members as the vote as a source of wealth and power, and not to serve them.
All right, let's hear from Dr. Sungi.
So is nationalism completely dead?
That's another question.
Does it have a role?
Thank you, Koigi. All right, Doctor.
So I'm trying to answer the question.
Yeah, you will.
Okay.
You know, if now you have this dialogue, then we'll have a conversation, please. Yeah? So let's just follow the sequence here. All right. Let's hear from Dr. Sungi.
Yes. So I think. So this is my view. I don't know how wrong I am, but I believe that widening the political tent is a success. It's healthy when it comes to politics. And we've had some successful cases. My own native Tanzania, you have seen that Tanzania has 123 ethnic groups. but there is less perception of marginalization or political neglect, even from the smaller ethnic groups. So we need to really find a way in widening this tent and allow this perception to be minimal. And you can actually see even in this country, there's beginning of these voices that, you know, there's a need to have this wider political tent to allow other individuals also to feel that they are part of the government. You know, it's human nature, I think. Even when Barack Obama became president of the United States, black people in the United States felt like, you know, now it's the opportunity for us to move from one place to another, economically, socially. But I don't know how much that was a success. So I think it's very important to allow people to be involved in governance. But I just want to make one observation. I think there has been...
Before you make your observation, because 123 ethnic groups in Tanzania, and over the years, I've never even known one tribe from Tanzania. Maybe because of my deficiency but where was this predicated on? Is it because of a spirit of ujamaa that was actually spirited by, you know, the founding fathers like Julius Nyerere?
So yeah, that's a good point. I think nationalism can be both positive and negative, and we should always avoid the negative nationalism. So I think the creation of the state, even when it was Tanganyika before it became Tanzania in 1964, there was a sense. I think Mwalimu Nyerere recognized that. The first thing, the most important thing, is to unify everyone, you know, and he used language as that tool, that mechanism to bring people together. And I think it worked, and we, you know, Tanzanians don't see themselves in their ethnic lens, but as a national, as a Tanzanian. So you wouldn't, when you ask someone, a Tanzanian, what tribe they are, they would probably not answer that question. Because it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant where I come from. I am Tanzanian first.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that was also the idea in Ethiopia and other countries. So nationalism is not really a bad thing. It's sometimes a good thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But here in the country, we identify one another by, maybe I can call Hassan Khaneji, we Mluya, we Mkikuyu, we Musapere.
When you say that you are called Michael, somebody will ask, Michael who?
Michael who?
Yeah, that is Michael is not enough.
So they'll tell me, Michael is not your name.
Say
what is your real name?
What else you are, so that you can be properly placed.
Let's hear from Dr. Hassan Khaneji.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. You know, perhaps Dr. Sungi may share with us at the end of the session why the members of parliament are going crazy over this charlatan who is now in jail, called an MP. Remember? Jaguar?
Yes.
Jaguar.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, okay.
just a lot of silliness.
We're beating foreigners.
Yes, exactly.
You want to borrow on that, Sungi? I know maybe you'll have some reservations on it, but we'll discuss it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's true that you do not know any tribes in Tanzania, because you know, I think they have just as many Maasais as we do in Kenya.
Yes, apart from the Maasai.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it's not really as pronounced as
pronounced.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know whether we're actually approaching it the right way, because we should not confuse the need to build a sense of national identity with nationalism. Nationalism, well, generally it's identification of one's own country and its interest, mostly to the detriment of other nations. Okay, yes, and you can look up in political science, sociology, whatever. So it is America first type of thing, you know.
That is nationalism.
Yeah, that is nationalism. Is America first.
What about the nationalism that brings the communities together? The one that we had around the time of independence, if you remember.
Yeah. And so Kenya was a bunch of nations that tried to build a state, and we're still in the process of trying to build a nation state. at least in the political science, sense of the word. We were different. There were Kikuyu nation, Luya nation, Luo nation, Maasai nation. We were trying to build a nation state because somehow by accident of history, we were forced by colonialists somehow to be in one country. And so we have to find a way. And some of the things that we've used in building national identity is language. Tanzania has done that more successfully, sometimes ideology, sometimes so many other things. Israel has done that with a lot of success, actually, putting different disparate groupings from Europe and Middle East together, through language and other things. Now, I think, going back now to a subject, the subject of the morning, part of the problem in Ethiopia is the inconsistencies within the federalist structure itself. There are about more than 80 ethno-linguistic groups in Ethiopia, and it was actually meant to help calm some of these potential fissures, especially after the war. But then there are only 9 regional assemblies. So it has created lots of ethnic minorities in these 9 other assemblies. Where do they go? Number 2, these groups are also dispersed all across these other 9 regional assemblies. So while we're talking about ethnic federalism based on ethnicity, is it really true? Because there are more than 80 and we only have 9. It's imagining we have 8 counties in Kenya based on ethnic groups or main ethnic groups, but then we have 40-something.
So it hasn't worked.
Yeah, so it becomes a challenge. But I think the reason, the thinking behind it was to try and save Ethiopia from itself. But I think as time has changed, and of course as the political space has opened up and reforms and what is going on, it's about time, I think, Ethiopia re-examines. Either it adapts, it modifies its system, or perhaps it assumes a different system and go back to look at its constitution. Because, obviously, of course, it is not working, and especially with this current president, who, as Professor said, is kind of the Obama of Africa, as we know.
You said that there are 80 communities.
Yes. There are more,
only 9 are accommodated.
Yes. Yeah, 9 assemblies.
So why not have a nationalistic state that accommodates everybody and get rid of these communities?
Professor.
Professor, please.
I think, let me first start by thanking Mheshimiwa Koigi for pushing us to debate this, because this is really at the core of our challenges in Kenya and as elsewhere. And Ethiopia represents a very unique, perspective of understanding how the whole concept of nationalism, as Mheshimiwa Koigi is trying to put it forward. First, to make the point that nationalism is negative. Now, let me just say why I'm saying it. Because
nationalism is negative
in its origins, because it is equated with the chauvinism in the West. And what it did is that it gave birth to ethnic nations. Britain, Yugoslavia was a good experiment in multi-ethnic.
Germany is an ethnic nation.
Yes, it's an ethnic nation.
France is an ethnic
Yes. So
nation.
if you go to Denmark is just 5.1 million people. Sweden is about 5.1 million people. And these are the Swedes. These are ethnic groups. So Africa embarked on an experiment that the world has never embarked on. And Ethiopia epitomizes that experiment into nationalism. First, nationalism has 3 compounds, and if you read George Padmore, basically the philosopher of our modern Africa, or Kwame Nkrumah, his student, or Julius Nyerere, who liked reading his work, you'll find that in Africa there are 3 competing nationalisms that we are dealing with and are not able to mediate. First is ethnic nationalism. I am a Kikuyu, he is a Luo, he is an Oromo, he is an Amhara. Second is the ethnic nation, the nationalism of the nation state, whereby you have many ethnic groups within one state,
yes,
trying to come up with a united state.
That is the nationalism we are talking about.
And that one was fueled by an external factor, which is liberation. The fact
why is liberation external?
No, because we united. We united in
Yeah,
order
but
to.
let him finish his train of
We
thought.
united
Then we'll come to
in
you.
order to fight an external enemy. And when the enemy was gone, what was the glue to hold us together? then in that case, you can compare that with Somalia. Somalia is one ethnic group in one territory, one religion, and one history. It's a perfect case of a nation state in that sense.
One ethnic group.
One ethnic group, one religion, one history, one people. But why are they divided? They are divided because they amplify clanism.
The clanism within the ethnic group.
As part of their ethnicity. Let me finish the third one.
Yeah, just a moment.
The third one and the most enduring, and the one that we have clung to, and the one that is very natural, is Pan-Africanism. And it's Pan-Africanism that gives birth to now what we are calling the nation state, the nationalism of the Kenyan people, the nationalism of the Tanzanian people. Look at our founding fathers, Nyerere, Nkrumah, Sekou Touré. All of them are first and foremost Pan-Africanists. And second, members of their nation. At the extreme, Nkrumah was able to liquidate Ghana in order to melt into a United States of Africa. That's why he ranks very high as that. And people like Amilcar Cabral in Cape Verde were literally saying that these nations we are liberating them basically to be part of the general Africa. They never saw themselves as coming up to stand on their own. So what is the point? The point is that in Ethiopia, they are now trying to grab. Remember, Ethiopia was the only country in Africa that was never colonized. Ethiopia was the only country that took part in the Bahrain Conference of Partitioning of Africa, because it was in the League of Nations, and it also joined the League of Nations. And therefore, its nationalism goes back into the past. And many countries like Jamaica and others have used Ethiopia as the rallying point of their own nationalism, that we are who we are because we are free. We are children of Judah. That is Rastafari nationalism as you know it.
The Emperor Haile Selassie.
Yes, Haile Selassie. Now, the point is that Ethiopia is imploding because as we talk about democratization, you begin to challenge dictatorship and authoritarianism. And all countries are imploding at the verge of challenging the hegemons that existed. The Amhara give Ethiopia their language. They give Ethiopia their culture. They give Ethiopia the heritage. And the Dag regime and succeeding regimes challenged that kind of system, the feudalism that existed before. And it is moving from feudalism to democracy that Ethiopia is grappling with. For us, we don't have to grapple with that problem of coming from feudalism because we didn't have a traditional dictatorship.
Yet you have the same problem. Yet we have the same problem.
Yeah, but the ethnicity analysis is different in that sense.
How different?
Because we're talking about...
We still hate each other. We still go for each other's throat.
We have to...
Have you forgotten that?
We have to move beyond eulogizing or kind of praising the so-called the Kenyan identity and other identity because these are invented. Kenya is older than me, is younger than me, if we go by Madaraka.
Okay.
So in other words, we have to commit to the idea that we are building nations. So Kenya is work in progress.
What are we
Tanzania
going to use
is
to
work
build
in
the
progress. The real thing that goes deep into the heritage is the ethnic nationalism, which is negative. I agree with you. It's very negative. And to defeat it,
but this is a compounding of words that is also a problem for Koigi.
Yeah.
He's wondering how we can have ethnic nationalism.
Yeah,
and this is a fairly new coinage for him as well. He's grappling with it. Yes.
What I'm trying to say, that it is possible to have, I would probably, to use his term, multi-ethnic nationalism.
Yeah.
It is possible to have people, even as they remain communities, who are also, who wear also the identity of their nationalism, like being Kenyan at the same time that I am Kikuyu. And let me give an example. When I was young, I do not remember ever thinking of myself as when I was thinking about our political problems, our independence. I never thought of myself as a Kikuyu. And when I went to meetings, because I would go very far to hear Kenyatta, Jaramogi, Tom Mboya, and the others, I was not going to those rallies to listen to the Kikuyu leader called Kenyatta. And I cannot remember ever Kenyatta identifying himself as a Kikuyu leader. He always identified himself as a Kenyan leader, and when he wanted to go outside of Kenya, he became an African leader. Now, when so you ask yourself, if it was possible then, and I remember during the independence elections, in Nakuru, where Kikuyus are in the majority, did not even take most of the seats. The people who were voted for were actually Luo politicians. I remember in my area, the senator became Wasonga Sijeo. In Nakuru town, it was Ochieng Oneko. And yet we had Kikuyus there. But Kikuyus decided to pick their Luos for their leaders because, first of all, these Luos were Kenyan leaders, not Luo leaders. And they had never identified themselves as such. So what I'm trying to say is that we already have had that nationalism. It's not the first time, as Kagwanja is trying to argue, that this is something we can now pick because we have not had. This is what we have always had. So why should we drop it in favor of negative ethnicity when we know that wherever negative ethnicity has applied, it has failed and it has caused mayhem? If we go to the question of Yugoslavia, Yugoslavians were a multiplicity of ethnic communities. They had to decide whether that is how they wanted to grow or would go the ethnic way. And at one point, they decided to go the ethnic way. They had even they had a rotational, an ethnic rotational system that allowed communities to hold power, a community to hold power for, say, 2 years before handing it over to another ethnic leader. And before they knew, they were wondering whether they would ever be reached by the goodies. So they rebelled and went and they split. Because a Kosovo person would not wait forever to have a school in his area, merely because Assad happened to be the president at that particular moment.
And therefore there is no development in Kosovo.
That's right. So they went into war. Now they are asking themselves, how do we rebuild? Do we go to the ethnic status again, or do we unite? Because when we were divided, we fought. Now that, can we unite? Is it possible? Probably Kagwanja will say, it's not possible.
Thank you.
What we need now... No, that's the way I'm getting it. And I'm saying, because you are talking as if we have some ethnic identity that is so dear to us that we will sacrifice nationalism for it.
All right, thank you.
No, but if that's not what we are saying,
thank you.
I'm happy to hear that.
All right,
that's how I understood it.
No. As also Kagwanja is casing his answer.
And something else,
just a moment.
Just a second, so that it can also be considered together. Compare the situation we have in this country. I don't know where you have an identity card, which says that you are a Kikuyu or you are Luo. And the Rwandan situation where their identity cards only read Rwandan.
Thank you.
You cannot.
We'll extrapolate that all. Yeah, of course.
Like Tutsi,
Thank
Rwandan.
you. We'll extrapolate
Hutu,
that to our
Rwandan.
current situation. Thank you. Thank you.
Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Thank you. Dr. Mustafa? Dr. Mustafa.
Yeah, Dibal, the problem here, and Mheshimiwa Koigi talks about this, it's about resources.
Yes.
It's about the influence a community actually has. When the Serbs, Croats, Kosovars, and the others, when they went to fight, it was about resources, and one leader from one ethnic community decides now to take everything to that particular ethnic. It's about greed.
And it failed.
But let's compare this to Belgium. Belgium has various ethnic communities. They have the German quote the French, the Dutch. There's a place called Wallowy. You know, they struggle with this, and what they've done is to actually allow them to develop their own region, some kind of an autonomy.
What do you mean they struggle?
No, they struggle. It's just that it doesn't appear. Switzerland. Do you know the president of Switzerland today? Switzerland is made up of French, Italians, Germans, but today you don't even know who the head of state in Swiss is, because they have transcended that ethnic identity, because what matters for them is who they are as Swiss, and this is what you're arguing about.
And how you provide.
And how you provide. So there is no poverty there. Yeah. Being German or Italian or French in the Swiss context has not necessarily made you have more bread on your, on your table, as is the case in some of the African countries.
All right. Oh, Dr. Sungi, before we come to...
So which can distribute
yes. Just a moment, Koigi.
Is the question.
It's the state.
So it's the state. Yeah. State nationalism.
Right, Koigi, thank you.
Not ethnic nationalism.
Not ethnic nationalism.
All right, hold it, Koigi. Let's hear from Dr.
That
Hanenje.
I think is...
So we have, just back, because we want also to compare what is really happening in Ethiopia, because I think also when, with the advent of devolution right now, I think many people are saying maybe we've also entrenched ethnicity with devolution, because there's no way now we can actually a governor who is a Kikuyu governing in Kisumu.
You cannot have a Kikuyu become governor in Mombasa.
That's what I'm saying, because people are saying you're not one of our own. Yeah. And we've seen people saying also some of the governors. So where did
we go wrong?
How do we get even our staff from other regions to come to work in the counties, that we should give the counties priority first? This is what actually we are tackling with. Even moving forward, we need to nip it at the bud. But the question is,
so
I was asking about like the Sidamas and Walayatas in Ethiopia, who are feeling that they're partners. They're not part of a coalition. And they're saying, since now we're not feeling like we are part of this country, why can't we secede? And we've had this particular debates here with the Republican Council. We've had also is it the NDLF, the Northern Frontiers as well?
Yes, yes.
They want a secession as well. When we're talking about this, and we think as a country we're moving towards nationalism,
but it seems that
but it seems that we're actually retrogressing somewhat. Where are we at?
Dibao, you know, part of the challenge we had politically in this country is because of the perception, and it's not just a perception, but it's actually a reality, that much of the power was centralized within the national government. And there was a consensus that we needed to devolve this power to regional governments. Now, I absolutely do not think that 47 counties are viable. I think we have a bloated government. We can't afford it. We're a little bit too poor at this stage. But now, going forward, the concept and the philosophy behind devolution is a good thing. If, of course, we have to make certain provisions. So, for instance, some counties they have a lot of expertise, they have very high populations. Now, what are you going to do if, for instance, you cannot get employment across, the other county because you don't belong there? That is a kind of exclusivist politics that, is not going to be healthy. And then politicians, of course, are always going to use the county, the nationalism at the county level to try and exclude others. So that is something we seriously need to examine. And of course, we know about the debate that is going on with regard to looking at our constitution. Some people are opposed to it, mostly, I would say, for political reasons. But we need to do that. Most of you in this place, you know that what we had at Bomas is not what we ended up having anyway. What we have is terrible, is mediocre, and it's a corrupt constitution. We actually need to revisit it. It's not entirely wrong to have a federalist system if we can be able to manage it properly, but also distribute resources in a way that is fair, but in a way that can also be accounted for. What percentage of what we're giving to counties today actually goes towards development when you look at it? Most of it is just looted and spent out there on useless foreign trips. So it's not essentially a wrong thing. Now, going to Ethiopia, you have these communities which are supposed to be partners.
Yes.
But perhaps they don't feel they're partners enough. Now, sometimes you can only accommodate so many people because government is only so big. Of course, Ethiopia is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, but its budget is still actually smaller than Kenya's. It's important for us to understand that. Yeah, you know, we are hitting like 3 trillion. That's 30 billion. Over $30 billion. You know, yeah. Theirs is slightly less than ours, at least at this stage. So they only have so many resources to be able to accommodate all these people. And as Prof said, any transitional country or society goes through these systems is going to require a balancing of certain acts, perhaps a re-examination of actually the current system in Ethiopia, because what worked in 1995 under pretty much an authoritarian regime until, of course, Abiy Ahmed came to power, is not likely to work just the same way. And Mheshimiwa here was a victim of the 80s and the 70s. What worked then could not work in the post-90s and post-2000s because Kenya has changed. And so you also need to change with the times. Now, Abiy Ahmed, we wish him well, but he's going to have to re-examine that. Now, I would not say that Ethiopia is going to break into, you know, it's not going to be balkanized into other countries, because I don't think whether the African Union, the United Nations is ready to recognize a new country or a state in Ethiopia. Yeah. Of course, politically it's already balkanized, but in terms of actualizing that, there will be recognition of Somaliland before there's actual recognition of anything else, which again is likely to happen. So I don't see that happening, but I see the conflict increasing. And the danger of implosion of that is because of the strategic positioning, the size and the economy of Ethiopia, we are likely to bear the worst brunt of it in case things go bad. So it's not just in the interest of Abiy Ahmed to fix what is going on. It's the interest of regional governments such as Kenya. We are currently, of course, the regional hegemon, to actually assist in that process, that we can teach them some of the things, how we've been able to manage some of our problems. We've had a lot of serious issues. I think we know that. You know, what is it that we can share with them? What is it that we can use through IGAT and through African Union? And sometimes perhaps borrow the United Nations. Of course, we should not always ask for foreigners for help. But what can we do to assist this regime to actually be able to stabilize Ethiopia? It does not mean it's going to be perfect. This was expected. We expected, and I think we've discussed in this show, what was likely to happen now that he has come to power. He shocked the system. And when he shocked the system, he tends to fight back. And how he's going to solve now this fight back, especially the kind of reaction that's coming, is going to determine the direction of Ethiopia.
All right. So, Dibala, let me just make a few points here. As social scientists argue that ethnicity and race has nothing inherent in itself. It's something that is socially constructed. So, right. See, I blame politicians because they take the easier route. So if I'm running for parliament and I stand and I say, you know, you, my people, are poor because you've been marginalized. I'm really addressing the emotions of my people, and it's the easier way. Rather than saying, you know, our situation is as this because we poorly manage our revenues and things like that. We have corruption and all these other things. So I think politicians are the ones who bring about these sentiments where people start seeing themselves as different from others. And actually there's nothing really inherent about that.
All politicians?
Well, a majority of them.
A
majority of them, especially in our African continent. They use the ethnic card to get votes. And it works. It has worked. I mean, we have cases as evidence for that. So I think if we deal with those types of people, then we can start recovering. I agree with what Mzee Koige is saying. I mean, absolutely. I mean, the founding of this state was not based on ethnic identity. It was more of nationalism.
But
you know?
now is.
But now it is, and it's because of these politicians who I say are trying to get the easier way to get into power. But going back to Ethiopia, I think we have painted a not good picture about Ethiopia. But security-wise, I think Ethiopia has been very successful. When was the last time you heard there was a terrorist attack in Ethiopia?
Well, they have fought.
It's been a long, it's been a
a
while.
Long time ago.
And they have a majority, they have a big population of Somalis than
Somalis have
Somalia itself.
Yes, actually, Somalis have a region.
Correct.
That's the challenge
That
if
is
you,
called
if you
Somalia.
So-
equate.
Let her finish. Let her finish.
So I think though Ethiopians may have problems within, and they are working around trying to get along and things like that, but they've been very successful in fighting, threats that come from outside.
Right. Peter.
Let me start by assuring Mzee Koigi that first and foremost, I'm a true believer in Kenyan nationalism. And I am.
So it is actually there.
I'm a child.
We are together now.
I'm a child of Kenyan nationalism. Most of my uncles actually
True.
died
Yes.
for Kenya, not for the region or the tribe they came from.
So it's there.
But
We agree.
I am also a scholar. And as a scholar, you are a surgeon. And you have to dissect things with that sharpness of a scholar.
Yeah.
I lived in the US. And at that juncture, we would only hang on an identity called humanity. Because these are many races, not even ethnic groups.
True.
These are
Many
races.
races.
And in a country like that one, if you read my writings around that time, they were all punctuated by the concept of humanity, humanity, humanity. They said, then I moved on and went to live in South Africa from the 2000. And I saw two conflicting nationalisms. The one nationalism I could identify with President Thabo Mbeki at that time, which is pan-nationalism, which translates to pan-Africanism or pan-Arabism or pan-Slavism. All these pan-nationalisms are based on race. We are Africans. And Mbeki was challenged in parliament, because he was in a country where the most powerful nationalism is African nationalism. The nationalism of the white people who originated from Central Europe, Netherlands, and so on. And the Africans believe that they're the true nationalists. And Mbeki actually wrote a poem and read it in the National Assembly and say, you can read it online. It's called, I Am an African. And he defined the African as the Chinese who came to South Africa. The African is the Afrikaner. The African is the Zulu. The African is the Xhosa. He goes on. Then I moved from there and lived in Ethiopia for 5 years with my family. And I saw nationalism. I was invited to take part in the 5th Federalism Conference called by Meles. And we debated this question. And I saw a completely new understanding of nationalism, because the Ethiopians are nationalists. They believe in the Ethiopian state. And
Not
they speak,
anymore.
they speak one language. That man, Abiy, speaks all the languages.
He can.
He speaks Tigrinya, he speaks Amhara, and he speaks Oromia. And in those languages, his preferred language of speaking and addressing in their meetings, they speak Amhara. That's their national language and the official language. So I saw few people who have built a culture. It's only country in Africa that has a script. In other words, they can write in their own ways, not the Roman things that we use. But what is being challenged here is not ethnicity.
No, it's not.
They are not challenging ethnicity.
Negative
They
ethnicity.
are challenging not negative ethnicity, dictatorship.
Dictatorship.
The tyranny, yes, because the way it was the Solomonic dynasty constructed Ethiopia, it was hegemonic in the sense that the Oromia and others felt that they don't belong. So, in other words, Ethiopia is a quest for inclusivity in the political system. It's not a rebellion. It's a fight for inclusivity. That is when Isaias Afwerki was very quick to come into rapprochement. And when you now begin to look at the link now between Ethiopia and Eritrea, it is faster than the link between Ethiopia and any other nation.
But we thought Abiy is a stabilizing figure for Ethiopia right now.
He's-
Does he have any hallmarks of a dictator?
national-
Yes,
as it is right
That's
now.
what we are saying, that his challenge is one, he cannot, if he succumbs to Oromia ethnic nationalism, what Mheshimiwa Koigi is calling negative nationalism, like he has done, you see,
No, I have not talked about negative nationalism.
negative ethnicity.
Yes.
Those are concepts. Negative ethnicity, because we are saying
gives birth to ethnic nationalism.
ethnic nationalism and negative ethnicity.
We're really glossing over.
No,
This is a very scholarly
let's
talk.
not lose you.
I don't want it to really
Let's
go
not-
way over our viewers.
Let's bring it
the
to
heads of our viewers.
security, what it means for
So
security.
what we are
As a
saying in
winding up,
short,
yes.
Yeah.
what we are saying in short is the tightrope which Dr. Haneje talked about, the tightrope that he is walking, Abiy is walking, is to remain an Ethiopian and not to succumb to temptations of ruling with an Oromo ethnocracy, whereby you coerce your kith and kin from your tribe and then think that you are establishing order in a country. You have established order based on ethnic dictatorship. And that is what Africa is struggling about.
Thank you.
When you mentioned Nyerere, Nyerere established order not on the basis of ethnic dictatorship, but on the basis of not ethnicity, but Pan-Africanism in Tanzania. We are all Africans. That's how he created Tanzania. Today, our democracy is having its demons. And these demons are, first, you mobilize your tribe, like it is a farm or an estate. Then you bring them to the market state. So you have,
You sell them.
you have the audacity and that moral high ground that to ask somebody else, what are you bringing onto the table?
Yes.
Because I am bringing my tribe. What are you bringing? It's such absurd and obnoxious.
Yeah.
And that's
that
the current
is-
state of play of politics as well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I
Dibal.
No,
say
because we're really stuck
something,
for
or
time.
we come back
yeah,
this way?
Yeah. We'll come back. Let's just go because we are actually remaining with 4 minutes. We need to be winding up. Maybe you can get headline thoughts.
Winding up the show?
We just started. We just started, Dibal. We haven't even gone to Iran and Sudan.
I know we've really hovered around this, but yeah, we need to be winding up.
All the places.
Yeah, let's hear headline thoughts also from Dr. Khanenje.
As I think Professor just mentioned, negative ethnicity leads to
Negative nationalism.
No,
Ethnic
ethnic
nationalism.
nationalism,
Yeah.
which is actually dangerous for all countries, all societies. Now, I was wondering, because we were supposed to be talking about Sudan, and we have limited time, should we, or...
No, not yet. We
closing
don't
remarks.
have the time.
Oh, these are closing
It's a-
remarks?
yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Anyway, my closing remarks would be, yesterday we had the news that since we were supposed to talk about Sudan, but we didn't, Kalonzo Musyoka, former vice president, has been appointed special envoy to Sudan. I think it's timely, and we should invest more efforts in these countries, in our near abroad. But at the same time, I've always made an argument that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs can play a more important role. Not can play, it actually plays a more important role than it's accorded. And perhaps the budget, you can correct me, 2.5 billion is too little. We need to invest more in our diplomacy in the region to restore our place as Kenya in the region and in the world.
Right. Thank you. Dr. Sungi.
Dibal, thank you for having me this morning. I'm naturally an optimistic person. I just think that Ethiopia is going through a transition, new leadership, and that's normal. It's normal in most countries. And I think the political stability will come back. But I think the Ethiopian case study and also now Sudan and many other places can teach us, teach other countries how to best navigate through those differences and try to focus on making sure that the common wananchi is being developed and that can make a difference in communities.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Mustafa.
Yeah, Dibal, Ethiopia takes us back to the whole issue of redefining security. What is security? And security has to be redefined in a shared sense that if Koigi Wamwere is vulnerable, then I'm going to be insecure. And so his vulnerability is a source of insecurity to me. And therefore, we need to take care of ourselves, at the individual community levels and at the national levels. Professor Kagwanja talks about the example of South Africa and Ethiopia. The Africans bludgeoned the other communities, a small minority, apartheid, and it's the same thing that happened in Ethiopia. You have the rulers wanted to bludgeon the others, and that has caused massive suffering in those two countries.
Right, thank you. Finally, let's hear from Kogi Omare.
Yeah,
Briefly, sir.
I will be very brief. And what I want to end up with is just to, first of all, to raise the question of who is fueling this problem. Dr. Ari has said that it is the politicians. I want to add that it is more the elite than the politicians. And politicians are a part of the elite, but it's generally the elite that have caused this problem because they are selfish, they are greedy, and they don't care about anybody else. The other thing I wanted to say is to emphasize is that the entire problem arises over the question of distribution of resources. How best can we distribute national resources to everyone, to every community? In Ethiopia, they probably thought ethnic federalism could. I believe that it cannot. Because once you divide a country into ethnic regions, those ethnic regions become enemies of the state. As Samora Machel said, in Mozambique, the tribe had eaten the state. And this is actually what has happened elsewhere in Africa. Now, to finish, I just want to say, I was looking at the question of the meeting that the DP had asked for being turned down. And all I want to say is that the marriage between the DP and Uhuru as the president is not working. And once a marriage is not working, what you do is dissolve it and have another marriage. This marriage is simply not working, and we are all suffering because of it. We are children of it. And yet, we are victims at the same time.
Thank you.
So call off this marriage. Let's have another one. Probably we'll have better people in marriage